Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. It is your girl, or maybe not your girl, not just yet, mom of two, wife of one, and I'm here to talk about Married at First Sight, season 13, episode 5. So the couples, well, first of all, welcome to my channel. If you've never been here before, please like, share, subscribe, comment, because I love to talk to you guys about the show. So definitely comment away. Click the notification bell so you don't miss any of my videos. And yeah, let me know if there are other shows that you want me to review and recap, because Married at First Sight is my ish, but I definitely have no qualms with watching other shows. So definitely give me some recommendations. I would love it. Now, if you watched any of my past videos, I normally recap what the show is about, but I've done that already 4 times. So if you guys don't know what Married at First Sight is, pause this video, don't click away, pause the video, open a new window, go to Google, type in Married at First Sight to understand the premise, and then come back here to hear my review and recap. All right? So we're going to get started. The couples right now are in the Florida Keys on their honeymoon. This is probably days 3 through 5, I think, of their actual marriage. So we're going to start first with Michaela and Zach. This is the couple that most people like the most because their chemistry has been instant. They're the only couple so far who has had sex. And we get to the honeymoon, and when they get there, Zach isn't feeling very well. So he's like, you know what, let's stay in separate bedrooms tonight. I don't want to get you sick. They both get tested for COVID. Michaela is negative. Zach is positive. So they don't show a lot of them together, obviously. And I want to believe that, I know video editors like to paint a story for us about who these people are. And assuming the editors cut and splice their segment this way intentionally, Michaela is painted as this spoiled girl, the spoiled, immature girl. I'm not going to say that she is, because again, the editors could have just painted her in that light. But basically, when we see them and he's talking about how he's positive, and he talks about how, this sucks, I never wanted this, I definitely don't want you to get sick. Her response was, do you know all of the things that I bought for you to wear for you specifically, all the bathing suits and the clothes that I bought to wear for you? I did not come into this to be single and to be on my honeymoon by myself. And again, the editors probably, my hope, the editors cut the part where she said what she first said, most likely, I'm hoping, is, oh, babe, I'm so sorry you're going through this. I hope you're not scared. I'm going to do whatever I can to make you feel better. I'm going to do whatever I can to help you out. But it just sucks because I was looking forward to being on this honeymoon with you, and I bought all these things to look cute for you. So I'm hoping that they cut out the first few sentences that she said and focus on her being upset that she can't parade around in these cute outfits that she bought for him. And then when they show her talking head, she's like, this just sucks. Like, I can't on my honeymoon with my husband. Can't even be with my man. I can't celebrate with my man. And again, I'm hoping that they cut out the part where she was sympathetic to him and she was worried for him. That's my hope. But it was interesting because, again, their section was short because they couldn't show them together. He said he didn't mentally want to be around her. She calls him mean. But what I think he was saying was, being around you makes my regret that much deeper because I can see you, I can physically see you, I can't touch you, I can't hold you, I can't go and do all these wonderful excursions we probably had planned to do for our honeymoon. So being around you hurts me because it's a reminder that I can see you but not be with you. So I understood what he was saying. I'm sure she understands what she was saying as well. But one thing I will say, a couple things I want to say. First of all, when all the couples got together on this trip, they were all wondering where Michaela and Zach were because no one had heard from them. So Michaela called one of the women. She called Rachel. I was curious why she called Rachel specifically. I don't know if that's the one she bonded with the most. I just thought it was kind of an interesting pick because the only time we saw the girls together, we saw them meet up and then we saw them at the bachelorette party. And it didn't seem like any one of them necessarily clicked tightly with the others. Like they were all kind of in this together kind of thing. So I thought it was interesting that Michaela reached out to Rachel first. But also, in her talking to Rachel, basically she and Zach talked about it. They made the decision that Michaela was going to go home to Houston while Zach is going to stay quarantined in Florida. So they showed them both. They showed her at home. They showed him still in Florida. And they talked about how they miss each other. They're like, even though we've only been married a short amount of time, I've gotten used to waking up next to her. I miss her so much. I hope she doesn't resent me for this. And she's like, I miss my man. I can't believe I, didn't have the honeymoon, blah, blah, blah. And at first I was like, girl, it's just one trip. It's one whatever. And it reminded me of how so many people put a lot of emphasis on the perfect wedding or the perfect honeymoon. That is one trip and that is one day. The emphasis is supposed to be on this perfect marriage. Not perfect, but working on making the marriage as good as it can be. But then I also thought about the fact that this is an experiment. It's an 8-week experiment. And so if he's spending bare minimum 2 weeks quarantine, that's a quarter of the experiment that you basically lost out on, which isn't any fault of anybody else's, but I thought I had to think about it in that perspective, like, oh, that is kind of messed up. So those extra 2 weeks that the other couples got to really bond on their honeymoon, maybe fall deeper in like or in love or whatever, Michaela and Zach don't have that, which means they're going to have to rely heavily on talking on the phone, doing video chat, cyber sex, whatever they need to do to continue to strengthen this bond between them because they can't physically be around each other. And that's definitely going to be a test because, the whole through sickness and through health thing is in your vows. And a lot of people aren't up to the challenge because you don't know what that means. You say those vows on your wedding day, but not everybody understands what it means to be in that position when you do have this sick person. And I felt for Michaela because she was like, on one hand, I understand Zach wanted me to go back to Houston because he doesn't want to get me sick. On the other hand, as my husband, I want to be there for him and help him out. Now, their situation is a little different because they're in a hotel room. You can technically distance in a hotel room, but I don't think the hotel room is that big. And I feel like that'll make it even harder and really emphasize the fact that, I can't be with you. You're stuck in one room, I'm in the rest of the thing, and you're still technically on your honeymoon by yourself. So I think I understood him, like, basically telling her, like, I think you should go home. Because how sucky would that be if all the other couples are jet skiing and they're parasailing, doing all these wonderful things, and you're basically stuck in a hotel taking care of this man. But in her mind, I'm a wife now. This is what wives do. We're supposed to take care of our husbands. And as someone who is married to someone who did have COVID, I understand her wanting to be there for him in whatever way that looked like. And again, I've said that from the very beginning, that she kind of immediately fell into this role of wife and what that means and what her role is. And like, okay, let me help you do this. Let's hit the ball run. Let's do this, this, and this. There wasn't really a period of adjustment for her like they have been for some of the other wives and husbands. So I definitely understood that from her perspective. But it's different when you're in a full apartment and your husband has COVID. He can be in the back room and I still have the entirety of the apartment. I can leave whenever I want to. It's very easy to maintain that distance. But in a hotel room that's a lot smaller, not as easy. So I understand completely why they made the decision that they made. But I did understand also that is a little tricky. It's not as cut and dry. So I don't have an opinion on them yet I did have an opinion on them earlier, like, oh, they're definitely going to make it. But this episode, because we didn't really see them together, again, the way the video was cut, Michaela looks like this immature, selfish person that her concern is that she can't wear these cute outfits for her new husband, but also that she misses him and she wishes she could do more for him. So we'll see what happens with him. Hopefully Zach is okay and he's, I think he's on the show that they play where they do updates with the current couples. I never watched that because I really don't care. But I think he's okay now. But that's pretty much just them. There wasn't a lot to say because there wasn't a lot that happened. Brett and Ryan. Ryan, I've said from the very beginning, is very blah. He's just kind of bland. He has very, very dry humor. So it's like I hear when he is making jokes and I can tell when he's trying to intentionally be funny. It's just not my cup of tea, but I'm not the one married to him. It's not supposed to be my cup of ati. And I won't say I just like him as a person, but he is very dry and I'm just not really a fan of his humor. And also again, I have to keep reminding myself, this is like day 3 or 4 for them, but it's week 5 for us. So they went on the honeymoon and apparently she's afraid to fly. So the flight was a little rocky. He's still dwelling on this because he dwelled on it when they got there. And the next morning he was like, yesterday was a little bit rough. She didn't do so well on the plane and excuse me. And he's like, her not being great with flying concerns me. I was like, are y'all planning to live on a plane? Like, if y'all not flying every single day, if she got this fear, y'all ain't flying that daggone much. Again, it's still a panorama in the world. Y'all ain't going nowhere. That's why that's interesting. That's what he like harped on, like, oh, that's a flaw, and I'm gonna have to keep an eye on that. But today's a new day. I'm not gonna focus on it. That's not a big deal. But again, I'm not him. Don't know what's in his head. That's fine. So, and another thing that Brett brought up, which I thought was really interesting, is that these people got married. They are legally bound to this person for at least 8 weeks. And even though they're married on this honeymoon, they're all going on their first date. And I was like, oh, that's right. And it had me thinking about first dates and what can make a first date great and what can make it disastrous. And it's obviously a little different when you're married, because on a regular first date, you meet up with the person somewhere, because most women I know, when they have a first date, the man does not come to pick them up because they don't want the man to know where they live just yet. So you meet this person at this very public place, so in case something goes down, you can signal to somebody around you. Normally, you have a code with your girlfriends or a close guy friend, like, hey, if this date sucks, I'm going to text you, and you're going to call me and pretend like it's an emergency. I have lots of girlfriends who still do this to this day. I am their out. I have no problem with that. But when you're married, you can't do that. You have to sit through this date, whether it's quote unquote good or quote unquote bad. And at the end of the date, you're going back to the hotel room with this person. And it's different from a marital standpoint when you've been with this person for a while, but this person is essentially still someone you're getting to know. So I did think it was interesting that they all were experiencing going out to dinner together and going on these excursions together. But I think because they all signed up for the show, they're all serious about learning somebody new. So the conversations, I felt, flowed very easily for all of the couples. Even Brett and Ryan, who I thought were a little stiff at the wedding, but the conversation flowed very easily. They talked about serious topics. They talked about sex. They talked about intimacy. They talked about having kids. And I like that it seems like they're on the same page. I like that they're both very comfortable with being open about who they are, what they want, what they don't want, the past history, relationship history. And I also thought it was interesting, because I never really dwelled on it before, that she's the one who has not had a date and not been intimate with anybody in 2 years, while he is the one that has been a serial dater and has been going on date after date after date with all these women. So they're very much opposite ends of the spectrum, which means they're both going to look at intimacy very differently. So I don't know how that's going to play out in the future. She says that she needs some time because it has been so long, and she puts obviously a stronger emphasis on being intimate than maybe he does. And that's going to take some time. It's going to require him to be patient with her, obviously. But she definitely let it be known that it's not off the table. It's going to take me some time, but the more I get to know you, every day I'm with you, I am more attracted to you and I'm more comfortable with you. And so that's a good sign. So I think it's going to be okay. But it's funny because when they were talking about the whole intimacy thing, and he was like, I'm a sexual person. I just want you to know that. I'm not rushing you at all, but I just want to let you know that's who I am. And at first I was like, well, why are they talking about this stuff so early? But then I forgot for a minute, like, oh, they're on a time crunch. Most people, it's like, oh, this is the honeymoon phase. This is the time to just relax and have fun and not worry about having those deep conversations. We're on our honeymoon. Let's just relax and enjoy ourselves. But it's like, yes, you are on your honeymoon. This is supposed to be the really nice, relaxing phase. But at the end of the day, you still have this ticking time clock in the back of your head of 8 weeks. I have to get to know this person and decide if I can fall in love with them in 8 weeks. And during those 8 weeks, I am moving in with them. I am meeting their family. I'm meeting their friends. Maybe we're having sex, maybe we're not. But all of that's happening in a very short span of time. So that means that the conversations that normally may wait until like date 3 or 4 for some people has to happen right away for these couples, which is really interesting. And it's a very vulnerable position to be in, because if you're not used to talking about those things already, having to talk about them early, and then B, having to talk about them on camera has to be so nerve-wracking. So the fact that they seem to really flow with this conversation, I thought was a really good sign. And I still really like Brett. I like her as a person. Ryan did not annoy me at all in this episode, so I was like, okay, I guess he's okay. At least for this episode, he's okay. He did have one funny moment where they both got into a hammock, which you will never catch me doing. I'm not interested in any way, shape, or form. But he got into a hammock, and he was so nervous to get into it, and he struggled a little bit, and then she got in with him, and he said that might have been the most difficult thing about this whole marriage. So I thought that was cute. It's like, okay, haha. That's the only time I laughed out loud. Like, oh, look at you. That's great. Gill and Mirala, we got to go to them. So my uncle cannot stand Mirala. My mother, I don't think, likes Mirala either. I think Mirala is not a bad person. I don't think she's right for the show. And I said that last week. I still don't think she's right for Married at First Sight. She's very much a woman who knows what she likes. This is it. I like what I like. If I don't get it, I'm going to have an attitude, and that's it. I like, though, that they paired her with somebody who is not going to roll over for her. And I think even though she likes what she likes, I think she definitely respects the fact that Gill does not take her stuff. He's not like in her face and yelling at her or anything like that. He respects the fact that her opinions may differ from his, but he's just as vocal as she is with the things that he wants. And I like, again, that he calls her out on her stuff and doesn't just take it as like, oh, okay, yes, Meryl, okay, anything to make my wife happy. It's like, no, I need to be happy too, so let me talk about the things that I need. So I like Gill as a person. Now, I do think he was messy this episode. We're going to get to that in a minute. So when they first start with Mirala and Gill, they're basically waking up for the honeymoon, and she's still kind of complaining about the room. She's complaining about the resort. She's calling it a senior citizen center, and, you know, we can't even see the beach. It's just the marsh, and I want a beachfront view, and blah, 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 blah. And so he goes down to the pool while she is doing some work. Who brings work on their honeymoon? That was my first thing. Like, but then again, it's very indicative of her character, because they keep stressing that she's the kind of person, not only that she loves money, she came from very poor beginnings. So she is very adamant that I am never going to be poor again. So let me always think of ways to make more money. So I think that's why they emphasize her working on her honeymoon. It's like, I don't think that's a great sign. I didn't really care for that. Again, I'm not married to her. It doesn't matter. But this man goes down to, and she also said something, okay, my uncle brought this up, that she's constantly wearing flannel pajamas, which I think is very funny, because on the wedding night, all of the women except for Rachel were all wearing long sleeve clothing. Michaela was wearing flannel for the first night of the wedding. First night of marriage. She had a long sleeve, like, onesie, basically. And so, I don't know, it's something about long sleeve pajamas that bother me, because I feel like I get hot when I sleep. And you're wearing long sleeves, and you're in Florida, and then you're from Texas. Those are not cold states. I just thought that was kind of weird. But she did wear the flannel PJs, so they're back. And he said that my wife is very particular. He's like, I'm taking notes on what she likes and doesn't like, and what she doesn't like, the list is a little bit longer. So I feel like he is very intent on learning his wife. He understands their differences, and he's like, you know what? I can move past it. She's a nice person, and she has a good heart. But she's particular. She likes things a certain way, and, you know, we're just going to have to get through that. He hasn't made any mention of him wanting to change her or wanting her to change that. It's more like, okay, it is what it is. This is the fact about her, and that's just it. And it's easy to say that on the, first 3 days. It's going to get annoying after a while, because it does seem like she's complaining about a lot of stuff. Or whenever he suggests something, well, I kind of like this, and no, I don't really like that. And he's like, okay, all right. And she also said, I'm a whiner. Yes, I whine. And it's a good thing that he's so easygoing. It's like, it's one thing to acknowledge a personality trait. It's another thing to acknowledge it and then say, that's something I need to work on. And he asked her once during the episode when they had dinner, he asked about her serious relationships and what she learned from those relationships. And she said, I learned that I like what I like. And I think that may have come from her being in a relationship maybe where someone did try to change her, or where someone didn't place value on the things that she liked and loved and didn't really respect the things that she wanted. And as a result of that, now she's more adamant than ever to have the life that she wants and refuses for anybody to try to change her. So I'm assuming that's why she's the way that she is now, because of past relationships. So on one hand, I can kind of understand, but on the other hand, when you're with somebody, sometimes you do have to kind of tweak the way you are a little bit. That doesn't mean you change for that person, but it's about, this person needs A, B, and C from me. That's not something anybody else has required from me. So let me figure out how I can give them what they need, because I can clearly see that they're going out of their way to give me what I need, even though it makes them uncomfortable. So once you see that happening, something in you, if you like the person, is supposed to be like, oh, they're going out of their way to make me comfortable and to make me happy. I need to reciprocate because I care about this person and I want them to be just as happy as they're making me. Now, again, that comes from liking somebody and wanting to do that for them. If you're not at that point and you don't care, then, you just don't care, and that's just the way it is. I don't know. I still don't have high hopes for them at all for this season, for this marriage. I don't have the highest of hopes for their relationship. I do think Gill is easygoing, but I like the fact, again, that he's not a doormat. He is not opposed at all to speaking up and calling something out when it seems a little ridiculous. So I do like that. However, this is when he's being messy. So he went down to the pool while she did some work, and he met up with Rachel and Jose, Brett and Ryan, and Bao and Johnny. This man proceeded to spill all the tea about his marriage. And my main note was the things that he said would have been perfect if all the guys had gotten together for drinks or gotten together to play pool, whatever dudes do, on the honeymoon, and he could just talk about, they're all going to talk about their wives and the experience that they're having, things that they notice, whatever. That would have been a perfect time for Gil to be like, man, let me tell you about my wife. She's really particular. She kind of throws tantrums, and I kind of liken it to a toddler. Like, she'll throw a tantrum when she's hungry or when she's tired. So I just kind of ride it out, give her something to eat, and I just kind of wait for her to calm down. And it's like, that's fine to say with your guys when all of you are discussing the things that you've noticed about your wives. Not to say in front of the couples. I thought that was just the wrong audience for that kind of conversation. It just seemed really messy because Mirala was not there to defend herself or to say anything. And granted, the things he said were things that she has said to him, so it's not like he made up anything, but still, it's like, in front of the wives, like, really, that's just the wrong crowd. Because, of course, the wives aren't necessarily buddy-buddy, but they're close enough that they're going to make sure Mirala knows what he said. Because even Bao was like, if I was Mirala and I knew he was saying all this stuff while I'm not there, I would probably have some choice words for him. Because that was unnecessary. But I feel like he was coming from a place of being a little frustrated, not with her being particular, but definitely with the whole kissing thing, because he's the one that brought up in the conversation with the group who here has kissed, who is like, tonsil hockey, like you guys like really, really kiss. And all of them have, even though none of them have had sex, all of them have at least been very kissy, lovey-dovey with their spouses. And even sitting there, Brett and Ryan had his hand on Brett's thigh. She had her hand on his shoulder. Jose and Rachel were kissing off and on. Bao and Johnny were, she was like kind of hanging on him, and they showed that they're close. And it is indicative that Gill, being the only one down there without his spouse, if Mirala had been sitting beside him, he would have had the same posture. I don't think he still would have been comfortable enough to put his arm around her or to touch her. And for him, one thing I liked in their conversation when they had dinner, they talked about their love languages. And I like that about this season, that the couples have been very open and honest about how they receive love. The whole idea of love languages is foreign to some. And I think during the season, the experts, they don't call it love languages, but they do hint at finding out how your spouse receives love. They do have that conversation later on in the season. So I like the fact that some of the couples have had the conversation already, and they already know. And Mirala said, my main thing is quality time. I want a man to spend time with me, to want to spend time with me. And then the next love language is gifts. And she was very open and honest about that. And for him, it's physical touch. So to have this man with the physical touch, number one, love language, and to only be able to kiss his wife on the cheek, that does something to him. Now, obviously, there are other ways to touch your spouse, not in a sexual way. But, she could hug him, she could hold his hand, she could rub his back, she could rub his bald head. Now, there's a lot of things that she could do that isn't necessarily sexual, but at least in touching him, is letting him know that she is interested, that she cares for him. Now, at least on camera, we haven't seen her do any of those things. It doesn't mean that she hasn't, but on camera, we haven't seen any of that at all. And even the whole kissing on the cheek thing, we saw him do that to her at the wedding, but haven't really seen it since. And I've never seen her try to kiss him on the cheek. And if that's all she's willing to give at this point is just the kissing on the cheek thing, then give him a kiss on the cheek. Now, granted, like I said, we have not seen it happen. So she could have, and they just didn't show it. But the energy she's giving off for me is, my lips are gold. My kisses are, oh my gosh, they're the best thing you're ever going to have. My body, you can't touch a body like this. It is just going to blow your mind when you get a taste of all of this. However, I don't give any of this away to someone I don't deem worthy. So once I feel like you're worthy of this, then I'm going to give you access to all of it. And granted, as women and even as men, yes, you should treasure your body. Yes, you should love your body. Yes, you should believe that your body is a temple and you can't just give it to anybody and anything. I get that, and I teach my babies that as well. However, your stuff is not gold. And don't act like your stuff don't stink either. And granted, again, I'm not saying this is how she feels, but that's definitely the energy that she's giving off. And if you are not letting this man kiss you because you believe in, not being intimate until you have that foundation of knowing somebody, that foundation of friendship, I applaud that, and there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. But you have to give something. Even again, if you're just kissing him on the cheek or hugging him or something, give him some kind of indication that at least what he's doing now is leading him in that direction of having some form of intimacy. Because he's not even mentioning sex. He's just saying a kiss. And so if he's not even getting that, it's like, show me something. Show me that you like how I'm treating you so far. Show me that you care about me. Show me that there's a chance that at some point we're going to get to the next level in our relationship. And I feel like she hasn't really shown him that. But one thing I did like is that, again, she's being, excuse me, she's being painted as this spoiled rich girl for the most part. But I like that even though they're painting her as a spoiled person, there have been plenty of moments where she has talked to him about his past relationships, about the things that he likes. Like, she's definitely shown an interest in getting to know him personally, which I think is key. Because I think if she was really as spoiled as they're trying to make her out to be, she would never ask him questions. She would never care. But it seems like she actually does care about him and really genuinely wants to get to know who Gill is inside and out. So I do appreciate that. He did surprise her. And he got her, well, first he surprised her with some macaroons on the balcony. And she was like, oh my gosh, this is so sweet, and like some champagne. And I like the fact that it was a very simple and sweet gesture. And even though it was very simple, didn't cost a lot of money, it wasn't overly fancy, that she still appreciated, like genuinely appreciated the surprise. And I was like, that's really sweet. So I like that she appreciated. So it shows that she can appreciate small things. Like, it doesn't have to be something that costs thousands of dollars. It's the fact that he thought enough about her to have these macaroons that she said that she wanted. So that shows that he was paying attention and he wants her to be happy. So I think that meant more to her than if he had given her something flashy and expensive. Though the chick did say, she was twiddling her wedding ring. She was like this, we have to upgrade this. This is just not going to do. Girl, you just met this guy. Don't dump on the wedding ring he gave you. Like, really? I thought that was tacky, but again, that's me. And I'm not married to the chick. But I did like the times they're together. I liked the conversations that they had. I thought that was cool. And yeah, I mentioned on him, I don't know if she's comfortable with giving hugs. We haven't really seen her hug him at all. I said I like that she shows genuine interest in getting to know him. And yeah, that was pretty much it. I feel like the episode showed that she is trying. Even when he surprised her, he took her on a seaplane. The view was gorgeous, looked pretty, but she was hesitant because she was like, I get motion sickness, which is fair. My son gets motion sickness as well. That is a thing. I get seasick, so I understand. But she knew it was something he wanted to do, so she gave it a try. Now afterwards, she was like, this is terrible. I'm never doing this again. But she at least tried, and she gave it a valiant effort. So I feel like I have to kind of give her A for effort for this episode, even though she could have at least hugged my man. She could have hugged him, could have held his hand, could have done more than what she's doing with him physically. But again, I ain't married to her. I ain't got to be patient. It's fine. Still don't think they're going to make it. I have no hope for them whatsoever. They're not going to make it. Let's go to Val and Johnny. Now, I really like Johnny. I like Val too, but Johnny is I love that Johnny is open and he's honest. Johnny's also very funny. Johnny's hilarious. And I like that my favorite part of their segment is that Johnny recruited Jose, who's another groom, to help him do something romantic for Bao. He's like, I'm trying to learn from you because, I don't know how to do this. And I had to remember that Johnny is almost like Ryan and being a serial dater, because he mentioned I've been on 100 first dates. Because as soon as he sees a sign of trouble, he just kind of, I'm like, oh, okay, that's not going to work. And he gets on a dating app and meets another person because he didn't commit to these women because he didn't have to. But now you are in a committed relationship from the very, very beginning, so you can't just walk away. And he's starting to develop real feelings for Bao, which is great. So I love the fact that he recruited another guy to help him out. Like, yeah, I was thinking of this outfit, and what should I get her? And I just need your help. And it's such a vulnerable position to be in, to tell her that I like her. And I just love that when he did this picnic lunch for Bao on the beach, and you could clearly see he looked so nervous, and his like bottom lip was shaking a little bit, just to tell her that he likes her. Not even I love you, but just like, I like you. And I was like, oh, it just really endeared me to Johnny even more. Like, Johnny, guys, like, it was so incredibly sweet. And she said that she feels the same way, and I thought it was a really sweet thing. What? Not to say what got on my nerves, but in the beginning of their segment, he mentioned a couple things. He mentioned that she asked him, I guess, how he slept. He was like, oh, I slept for, roughly about 7 hours. But then, I heard these little animals in the room, and it woke me up, and it's basically her snoring. So, A, I thought it was just a really funny segment. But B, he was like, he did his talking head. He was like, sleep is really important to me. So her snoring is something I'll just have to get used to. I have noise canceling headphones, and I'll just do that. But it's something I'm going to have to get used to. But I don't really like snoring. That doesn't really do it for me. And I was like, you made it seem like you got 2 hours of sleep. You said I only got 7 hours of sleep. Most people don't get 7 hours of sleep as adults. I thought that was so ridiculous that he made it seem like he got no sleep at all because your snoring was so loud. I only got 7 out of 12 hours. Like, Johnny, really? Come on. So that part was ridiculous. But then the part where at the end of the night, first of all, they've been sleeping with a body pillow in between them since they got married. And so finally they got rid of the body pillow, and she's like cuddled up next to him almost. And then she was like, I just want to talk to you about something. When you were making fun of my snoring, it kind of hurt my feelings a little bit because it's one of my insecurities. And he's like, but that's natural. You can't help it. And she's like, I know, but when I was in this camp, it was an overnight camp. I didn't sleep the whole camp because I was so afraid somebody would hear me snoring. And she was crying about it. And I was like, it's snoring. It was really... It was weird. It was weird to me. And I shouldn't knock somebody's insecurity or anything. I really shouldn't, but it's a snore. It's not like you... I just didn't understand the big deal. And I don't know, it's because she sees herself in this certain light of being almost... Not even without flaws. I don't think she sees herself that way. But maybe because... Here's my assumption. Because she plans everything else in her life to the T, especially with all of her Excel spreadsheets and whatnot, because this is something she can't control, maybe that's why it's an insecurity for her. Because literally everything else in her life, she can kind of pinpoint and plan and design and just make it all work to her benefit and make sure everything is flawless and it moves smoothly. So the fact that this is one thing in her life that literally is out of her control, there's nothing she can do to stop it, maybe that's why it drives her crazy, makes her feel insecure because she sees herself this together person and snoring makes you not together or something. I don't know. But that she had that kind of reaction I thought was weird. She was actually crying like he found out she had been abused or something. I was like, and even he was looking like, excuse me, but even he was looking like, what? So I thought that was weird. I still like the two of them together, but I was like, again, I think it's indicative of her maybe being too hard on herself. And so I don't know. That could definitely trigger something. I don't say trigger something in Johnny, but I think that could definitely be a turnoff. If she has that kind of reaction to snoring, that means, again, that she is very much about having her control. So if they get into some kind of situation, let's say they have a child or something later down the road, you can't control everything with your kids. She may not be able to handle that. So that could be an indication of a bigger problem, that she's not good with handling surprises or handling things that are kind of crazy and chaotic. So I'm not saying that it'll lead to that road, but little things here and there that don't look like red flags could turn into red flags later on. But I just thought that was really strange. Girl, okay. So I had no sympathy for her. I was like, it's snoring, girl. You'll be perfectly fine, I promise. But I still like them. I really like how they are together because she doesn't seem that goofy. He seems goofy and funny, but I feel like he definitely makes her comfortable enough to tap into her silly side a little bit more, which I really appreciate. Okay, So now I want to do Rachel and Jose. So, okay, the beginning of the episode, they're laying in bed, and she was like, I think we found so many things that we have in common, but I think we need to talk about some of the things we found that we don't have in common. And I do like I love how Rachel approaches the conversation. I like that she is not afraid to speak her mind, but she's also very clear about why she's bringing up certain things. She's very intentional with her conversation, which I really, really like and I can appreciate. And I think Jose appreciates that too, because I feel like men are very, and people say men are simple creatures all the time. Men are like women, like they want you to tell them what exactly you want. What do you want? What do you want me to do? They want to be clear. So I think that Rachel's very good at being clear with Jose and being very intentional about not hurting his feelings either. So she mentioned that basically she was telling him that I'm an independent person. I can tell even in your vows you talk about how you wanted to be a provider and protector for your wife and for your family. I get that and I can appreciate that. It's going to take a little while for me to accept that because I'm so used to doing things on my own. My dad brought me up to believe that I need to have my stuff together. So just in case my husband leaves me or something happens to him, I'm not stuck not knowing how to take care of myself, not knowing how to take care of the household. So I'm used to being independent is what she told him. But this all stemmed from the wedding night, her brushing her teeth and him asking if he could brush her teeth. And she just kind of like, brushed it off like, oh, ha, 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 that's funny. But then she recalled like at the wedding, he had the wedding cake in his hand and he fed it to her. And in the honeymoon suite, he had a brownie in his hand and he fed it to her. She was like, it's like I'm not a baby, and I like being independent. I know you want to like show affection. I get that, but it's not something I'm used to. And the thing is, in his mind, but I'm trying to show you early on that I'm here and you can lean on me and blah, blah, blah. But in my head, I was like, why is that important to you to feed this child? And the logic part of me was like, we are still in a panorama, Panasonic or whatever. We are still in this thing. Yes, you are my husband. You are still a stranger. I do not know your grooming habits. I do not want your filthy hands on my food. Now, granted, his hands may be perfectly clean. But the logic part of my head is saying, I don't know that they're clean. I just met you and you're putting your grubby hands on my cake and trying to feed it to me or on my brownie. Get your hands away from my food. That's just my opinion. Because my husband and I don't do that. Like that, it's different if I'm at a restaurant and I put some food on my fork, like, oh, babe, do you want to taste this? And I feed you that. That's something different. I'm not putting my hands on my husband's food and he's not doing that to me. And granted, we're a different couple, but I just thought that was weird. Like, what is your obsession with feeding? And even later in the episode, they're sharing dessert on the balcony. And he was like, oh, I want you to try to feed me. She's like, oh, okay. And she feeds him off of her fork. And she's like, oh, that wasn't too bad. He was like, oh, yeah, it's fine. And then he does talking head. He was like, I'm breaking her down, so one day she's going to let me feed her. Why is that important to you to feed her? I just think it's a really strange thing to focus on. I'm like, what? I thought that was weird. But also thought it was weird that when she talked about we need to mention the ways that we're different. That was her example, which I think is a great example. His example was, yeah, you're right, like our coffee. Like I saw that you like your coffee black, but I like my coffee a little sweeter. So, I just have to adjust. So this morning, I made 2 cups of coffee. It's like, she was like, okay, well, I was talking about this. And I felt like him making a comment like that when she's trying to talk about how we're different and him focusing on how they take their coffee. I feel like he was either A, trying to brush the conversation under the rug, or B, he just didn't want to focus on the ways that they're different because maybe in his mind he considers those to be negative things. But they don't have to be. You're not supposed to marry someone who's exactly like you because you would be driven crazy. You need somebody who has some differences from you, who are, has different point of view in some things, a little opposite of you in some ways, because that makes the relationship a little more interesting. And that person, hopefully, their flaws will be your strengths and vice versa. So I thought it was just weird that he kind of focused on the coffee thing. Like, who cares? That's not a big deal. It's not a difference either. I thought that was weird. But I do like that she addressed her differences head on. And again, she didn't see it as like, you do this and I don't like that, so we're not going to make it. She was just like, there's some things I have to learn how to do. I don't know if feeding me will be one of them, but I understand you need to protect and provide for your family, and I appreciate that, but I've been independent for so long that it may take me some time. And he looked like he was kind of taken aback by it. And it's like, okay, I get it that you've thought long and hard about this whole being a husband thing. And you've already decided in your head, I'm going to do this for my wife. I got her on this. We're going to do this, 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 and this. That is great, because he's also the guy that has lists for everything. That's great. You have a list of all the things you want to be for your wife. That is awesome. What you fail to remember is that your wife may have her own list, and her list may differ from yours. So now you guys have to come together with your own respective list of how you think a husband should be and how she thinks a wife should be, and you got to figure out a middle ground. And it's not going to be easy, and sometimes that takes years, because the things on your list are going to morph and change as situations in your life change. And if people aren't willing to make those changes, or they aren't willing to let go of some of the things that they have on their proverbial list, that's when marriages don't work. So I don't know what's going to happen with them. I saw him kind of being like, okay, but this is what a husband's supposed to do. And her being like, but that's not what I need a husband to do. So I think that's going to be kind of interesting. I don't know. She did surprise him and took him deep sea fishing, which is something he mentioned that he wanted to do. So I thought he appreciated the fact that she listened to him. And I can tell that he's kind of listening to her as well and trying to please her and make her happy. So I like that. I think that they definitely like each other. They are comfortable with each other. They already talked about going home and where they're going to live. And he's the guy who is owned, I think he owns both of them, but he's paid off 2 homes. So in his mind, I was just thinking you would move in with me and live closer to where I am. And she's like, and it reminded me of Eric and Virginia, because that from last season, because that was a point of contention for them. Because Eric had this house, Virginia had this apartment, and he wanted her to move in. And she was like, okay, but that's your house. I don't want to move into your house. I want us to have our own space, because we have pets, and they're going to be uncomfortable there. I'm going to be uncomfortable there. I'm going to feel like I'm just living with you, as opposed to us living together in a mutual space, which I always think is a great idea. And she also, Rachel, was like, okay, if I move in, though, I want everything to be 50-50, like the groceries, the rent, all this stuff. I want you to know that I plan on contributing to the household. I don't want to be a kept woman. And in his mind, but, it's my job to protect. Like, I got you. Like, you don't have to worry about money. And also, it was interesting, said that, like, yeah, what's mine is yours and vice versa, blah, blah, blah. Most people, it takes time to lead up to that. And that's what I love how I'm saying, that's why I'm trying to get him to understand, like, he's my friend. And this isn't a man thing at all. Women can have this mindset too, that this is an experiment. Yes, there are 8 weeks until you have to make your decision. But essentially, this is a marriage. And you all go into this thing believing that you're going to stay with this person for the rest of your life. That means there's time. You have to give it time for this person to let go of who, I don't say of who they are, but let go maybe of some traits that may stop them from being the best wife or the best husband, if that makes any sense. If you know that this man wants to provide for you, and if you know in your heart of hearts you want him to be a provider and you want him to be able to do that for you, not saying you stop being independent at all, but just saying that you have to let some of the guards down. Like, again, have that compromise where, okay, I can't let you pay for everything, but how about you pay for this utility and this utility, and then I pay for these utilities over here. Like, there has to be some kind of compromise, not just letting go and not just holding back either. There has to be somewhere they can meet in the middle. And that was up in my notes, that he wants her to give him the reins and let him be the man and provide for them both. And I said that doesn't happen overnight. As a single woman, you have to rely on you, and letting someone help you takes time. And even then, it may not be on the level that he's expecting. So again, she needs to be willing to let go a little bit. He has to be willing to let go a little bit as well. So he's talking about her kind of giving him the reins. It's like, okay, well, give her the reins to also be her own independent self, because they also talked about bank accounts. And he was like, so how do you feel about that? Do you want joint? Like, how do you want to do that? And she was like, because she mentioned how she's not good at saving money, but she wants to be better. She said, I think I should have my separate account, but then we have a joint account that we use for the bills. He said, well, I prefer if everything is a joint account, and we'll take out this money for the bills, and then whatever's left over, you can just use it to do whatever. And she was like, in her head, or in her talking head piece, she said that feels like an allowance to her. Now, I don't agree with that, because an allowance indicates that he's giving you this money. This is your money you're still putting in there. So it's your money you're spending. But I also understood what she meant, because my grandmother always told me before I got married, you make sure as a woman that you have your own money. Always have your own money. That doesn't mean your husband can't buy you things. Doesn't mean he can't pay for things. That doesn't mean he can't provide and protect for the family. She's not saying any of that. What she always told me was make sure you have your own money separate from your husband. She didn't even say the money had to be kept secret. Just have your stuff here. So push come to shove, something happens to your husband, he loses his job, whatever, anything can happen. You still have your stuff over here. And I've always, kept it in my mind. And so I think that's what Rachel's going through as well, which I definitely understand. But I don't know. I think people get divorced over finances all the time. I don't think it's gotten to the point yet where she can be like, oh, this is like a deal breaker. I think it's something they both have to grow. I think it's a situation they both have to grow in. Let's put it that way. Definitely going to take some compromise on both their parts. And if one person is willing to compromise and the other one isn't, that's when it can kind of lead to disaster. I don't know enough yet about Jose or Rachel. But I know that for Rachel's background, from her being in a past relationship where she felt like she lost her voice, she is more adamant than ever to maintain her voice, maintain her opinion, and not be afraid to speak out when something doesn't sit well with her. So the hope is that she'll continue to be that way, and that Jose won't try to stifle her by almost demanding that this is the way things have to be. So we'll see what happens with them. Hope you guys learned something. Do you guys have any predictions now of who's going to stay together? Have your predictions changed from last week? Did I not cover something in the episode? Let me know. I just watched the episode a few hours ago, so if I forgot something, please let me know. We can definitely discuss it in the comments. But I hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you guys next week. Peace.